Okay, this is a meeting of the Plainfield Planning Commission on July 21st, 2025. We're going to call the meeting to order, usually with the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So, Jesse, could we have a motion to approve
Yep, yeah,
and a second? Any discussion on the
yep,
minutes?
no,
Okay, all those in favor?
aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. So the first item on the agenda is to continue the discussion on the subdivision amendments that we've been looking at. And David's suggestion was really to start going through it line by line. And my suggestion is I sent out a copy in Word that you could see the track the changes, but some of the changes get with all the strikeouts hard to read. So I also sent out a PDF that shows all the changes in red, but doesn't show the strikeouts, but does read significantly easier because we moved some of the stuff around. Does that sound good, David?
Which one are we going to be, we're going to look at?
I think we got to look at the Word document, and I'll share the
Yeah,
screen.
okay.
I'll share the screen so we can all be looking at it.
Yeah, I
Because
think
we,
the problem we had the problem I had at the last meeting was that I was looking on my tablet, and the changes in the Word document didn't, they kind of like got scrubbed out of the tablet view somehow, but then I fixed that. So now I've got it all. I can see that properly.
yep, that's
Yeah.
that's good, but it's still for me. It's still hard to read with all those strikeouts. I like seeing
Oh, yeah.
the document that as it would appear if we had approved everything or when it finally goes out. This is
Oh,
what it
much
looks like.
easier to look at. But
Yeah,
if we're going to discuss it, we kind of have to see the strikeouts because that, like, there's things that are struck out that I'm not sure I'm, I think should be struck
right,
out.
right. So
Yeah.
I'll start on page 8, and we added the definition of applicant there. And does anyone have any changes or suggestions there?
No,
I don't like it.
Okay.
I know I don't want to be too negative, but um, I think that, it's, for me, and I think for the town, it's important that the entity that is doing the subdivision is fundamentally involved. So I think that anybody should be able to go to the Development Review Board and say, hey, I'm interested in, I may want to buy this piece of property and I might want to subdivide it. And can we have a discussion about what that means? That, I have no problem with that at all. But I think the way we're looking at it now, like the plan review is a serious hearing and a review, and there's all kinds of requirements that have to be included in the sketch plan. And I think that either the entity that's doing the subdivision, which could be the owner, or if there's a potential buyer, if that buyer has a purchase and sales agreement that's contingent on a permit, then they should be able to have standing. But I don't think just anybody that the owner is willing to sign off on should have standing to bring a permit application for a subdivision, a non-exempt subdivision to the DRB. That I just I think that in a small town, I think that the person who's going to be doing the subdivision needs to speak to the neighbors and whoever else wants to participate directly, not through a intermediary or a lawyer or like that. I think they could have those people there with them. But I just, that's my sense of it.
Yeah, what if the landowner's like in California? I mean, the landowner is not, is just somebody who's not in town.
I didn't follow.
He's saying, what if the owner of the land isn't local?
Well, that's why we have Zoom now. And really, I just think, this is a small town, and I think that for me, if somebody is proposing a large project, and look, the East Hill thing is in the background, but that's not the only kind of subdivision that might happen in Plainfield. And the East Hill thing, well, that's all us. That's more or less, that's a little bit different, but I just think that in a small town like this, a person who wants to do a significant project should face the neighbors and the community directly, not through an intermediary. And I also think that with, like, for me on the planning commission, and this would be worse on the DRB, I'm just a person. I was a builder. I know something about building. I know something about the town of Plainfield, but we can be overpowered easily. And to me, direct communication with the principals involved is important.
Charlie's got a raised hand.
Okay, let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, sounds good. I have to bring some history forward here. This issue came up in front of the DRB in a preliminary hearing where for the East Village expansion project, whereby the applicant listed on the preliminary was a unincorporated, unorganized group. And it was brought up to the DRB that no, the applicant wasn't a legal entity. In fact, the applicant wasn't a person. At that point, the DRB overruled that and interpreted the person that was representing the unincorporated group was allowed to be the applicant. I think, and I really strongly, the applicant is the entity which gets the permit. And if you give the permit to other than an owner, it's a Pandora's box. Who is developing? Who is authorizing the development? Are open to incredible amounts of uncertainty. And in the specific case that came forward, basically an outside organization was trying to get a permit to develop somebody else's land. And there was or still in the old zoning ordinance, that a person can appear as the agent of the applicant. In other words, the applicant can be represented. I think legally it has to be some level of attorney, but can be represented at the meeting. The applicant still is the owner, even though the person presenting at the meeting might not be that owner, but has been authorized by the owner to act in their behalf, that is, the owner's behalf, and not on the behalf of an unknown organization. So I think, and I hope this isn't too strong, this change of wording where applicant is being replacing subdivider has been proposed by an outside developer to smooth out a particular development. And I think that is absolutely wrong, that our zoning should be responding to a particular development and not a general development. And really, waivers can be made in case the situation is such that you might want to have an attorney represent you, or some other issue. So I would hope that all the changes of subdivider to applicant are deleted, and applicant is defined in this, is changed to define applicant is the owner in record of the property that receives the permit.
Thanks, Charlie. Alicia, you got your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, very
Yeah,
good.
okay, because sometimes I'm muted when
Yep.
the computer shows I am not. Yeah, thank you. I want to very strong and perhaps even stridently second David and Charlie's comments. I think it's egregious. I think the intentions can be good, but I think it's egregious when a town's zoning changes are driven by any project, no matter how good, and particularly the convenience of the way that project would like to operate and how it would like to be represented, or to fix a perceived problem in how the zoning was previously written that appeared as an impediment. It's a slippery slope. It opens the door for all sorts of unintended consequences, and zoning regulations of this town should be driven by principles that are good for this town, not in reaction to applicants, third-party applicants or other entities who would like to massage the zoning to facilitate a particular project, no matter how laudable. I just think it's fraught with danger, and I think it's just plain wrong.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the comments. Let me, I got the existing zoning up here. I'm just going to read the existing definition of a subdivider. Any person who shall lay out for the purpose or of sale or development any subdivision or part thereof is defined in these regulations either for themselves or others. The term shall include an applicant for subdivision approval. So, I mean, we did, as Charlie said, we did have that issue with the East Village hearing in front of the DRB, where it was really hard to decide who the subdivider was. So we have this proposed language as an applicant, and we have the existing subdivider applicant, which doesn't mention landowner either. So it sounds like we need to come up with a definition of applicant that satisfies the concerns that we've heard. Because the existing subdivider definition of a subdivider doesn't seem to do it either, because it doesn't mention landowner. It just says any person who shall lay out for the purpose of sale or development of any subdivision. So, David, you want to take a crack at it? You want to try? I don't have. I can look at Marshfield's definitions. I know you looked at that. Oh, that is Marshfield's.
I mean, the only thing, my thought, which, again, I'm not probably like all of us, and Will, you have a lot of experience, but I'm not a regulation writer. But my thought, without putting it into maybe proper wording, is that I think the situation that I could foresee that would be reasonable where a non-owner would want to really get involved in the process, where it would be important for a non-owner to really get involved in the permitting process would be in the case of somebody who wants to buy a property and subdivide it, but does not own it yet because their purchase and sales agreement is contingent on being able to get a permit. So that was one way that I could envision, another allowable applicant would be a potential owner with a P&S that was contingent on permitting. I still, and I may be minority view here, but I still think that the subdivider, whoever is the ultimate subdivider, should be involved. And I thought about the East Hill thing, the East Hill project, and if that proceeded, well, how would that work? Because it'd be the town that's the owner. And my thinking on that was, well, it should be a select board member that participates because they're the elected representative of the town that is buying the property to subdivide it. So, I don't know. That's rambling, but as far as I got.
Yeah, well, it's good to look at other zonings. I can look at Montpelier, but I don't see anything in Marshfields specifically defining the two. I think we
I'd also
can.
be curious what Karen's take on this is, because I vaguely recall that during that DRB meeting, when this question came up, Karen had other instances where there was a representative who was filing applications, and it may have been like a family member or an architect who was kind of spearheading the project. And I'm not sure that it I would be curious what other cases are. It seems like it could go either way in terms of making it problematic or making it easier for people that we think should have standing to have standing or not. I also, if there's an entity that's steering the ship on a project and is putting together the paperwork, it seems to me that the language that the applicant must be the property owner means that they need to sign the paperwork. And it doesn't necessarily limit that property owner from hiring whoever they want to put the applications together and do all the work and do the design, as long as they're willing to sign the thing. And maybe there's something to that. I don't know how much it fundamentally changes the hearing process.
I'm leery of that. And you're right, up to a certain point for me, at least in my mind. I'm leery of that because I think, the DRB, for example, the Goddard, when we met with the Goddard lawyer, I wasn't on the planning commission yet, I don't think, but I sat in on that meeting. The Goddard lawyer came to the planning commission and he said, oh, if there's anything I can do to help you, I can do this for you, he basically said, when he was talking about doing a set aside zoning thing for Goddard. And, I'm very leery of any qualified, architect, an engineer, a lawyer being the sole representative, and the people, it's a hearing, so the neighbors can be there, the other people in the community can be there, other people can ask for standing if they want it. I'm very leery of the board and the community only dealing with a lawyer who gets hired, or an engineer who gets hired, or an architect who's hired or volunteering. I think that the entity or a owner or a subdivider or a representative who's on the board of an organization, if that's what it is, but somebody who who's a decider, who can keep to hear from the community and the people who are attending that hearing. So that doesn't mean that the lawyer can't be there. It doesn't mean the lawyer can't present the application or help with the application. It just means that the actual person participates in the process. And to me, that would be desirable. Could there
Sure.
be some,
Charlie had a good point in referencing that the applicant should also be the person, I mean, the person who receives or the entity that receives the permit, usually, which would be the landowner of record for the original property. He's the subdivider. And that person is going to have to hire professional help because the sketch plan review gets complicated. You're not going to just do that on the back of an envelope. So we have that sort of dual purpose where you need professional help, but where does the permit go? It goes to the landowner of record who's doing a subdivider. And I saw Charlie raise his hand. And oh, okay.
You spoke my words.
Okay. Well, I think we want to keep that as a sort of a grounding concept that the applicant is the landowner who can hire professional help to create to meet the requirements of the regulations.
And it sounds like the further implication of your suggestion is that if the applicant is by definition the owner of the property, it sounds like you're also talking about a requirement that they're present at all hearings, as opposed to simply being the one to sign the paperwork.
that's what I think.
Ideally, but I mean,
explicit as well.
Yeah.
There are properties in town that are held in trust, and there isn't necessarily a single person landowner, but there is a owner of a property. And sometimes that's an unusual case. So I don't think we need to write around unusual cases. We need to deal with what's really the most likely occurrence, which is somebody owning a piece of property and wanting to subdivide it. So I guess we probably won't come up with the perfect definition, but I think the concept of the landowner as being receiving the permit is the applicant who can hire professional help. And I can do a little research on that. I can talk to the Regional Planning Commission, and if anybody wants to look at, I can look at Montpelier. There are other towns around. I just have Marshfields up on my computer. But for the purpose of this meeting, why don't we just say we need to refine the definition of an applicant or subdivider? Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. With that said, we want to move on. Okay, the next, I made a change in forestry because that shows up as a strikeout, but that was just formatting. Going down through the definitions, it would come to a person, and this is a somewhat similar thing, although I'm not sure person comes up in the regulations. But anyway, anyone want to comment on we define a person as an individual, corporation, partnership, association, or other organization, unincorporated, or trust, which is a broad definition of, that's probably what the Supreme Court said when corporations are people and they can donate to
I was thinking this was Citizens United.
Yeah, I know. But it's a complicated world we live in. I'm not sure. I would have to do a word search if the word term person doesn't appear in the regulation, we may not need to define it since there's a general definition of that. So we'll put this on the needs more research.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I might just pipe in for a second,
Sure.
I think this is in the same ball of wax.
Yes, it is.
At that same hearing, the idea of was this a person being the applicant and came up in front of the DRB. And the DRB at that point in time said, "Well, yes, obviously it's breathing and it's a person, regardless of what the role of that person was, what organization they represented, or whatever." And I'm maybe second guessing, but I think this change is in the same ilk as the previous change. It's trying to smooth out a bump in the road that came up at that DRB hearing.
Well, it is because that bump in the road took a lot of time and it never really got resolved. So
Exactly.
yes,
And
we do want to try to clear it up, but my inclination at the moment is if a person isn't defined in the if the regulation doesn't refer to a person where it does refer to a subdivider, then you know, I mean the idea is to try to make things easier to deal with for the DRB and not take as much and also for the people trying to subdivide their land. So, do we need a definition of person if we don't refer to persons in the regulation? We do need a definition of a subdivider or applicant because they are referred to. I'm not sure and can we use a general a legal definition of person? That's another question that I'm not completely comfortable resolving. And do you got any other thoughts on that?
Not me.
Okay. So we'll put that in the,
If we see that it comes up, I didn't notice it, the applicant one comes up a lot in in the rest of the, material, but I don't recall person. If it comes up, then that might give us a way of thinking about, whether we're comfortable with this language.
right. Well, I can do a word search at some point and we'll see if it comes up in any specific place. Um, I, oh, we do. So we took out the under this proposal, we took out the definition of subdivider and replaced it with applicant. And once again, that we need to come up with a different definition of one, use one of those terms. It doesn't, I'm not sure it matters which one, as long as it's consistent in the document. And then
my guess is that subdivider we should include it in the definition. Whether it's this exact, it probably will relate to the applicant definition that we come up with and owner and all of that stuff, but the word subdivider seems reasonable that there should be a definition for it somewhere.
okay, except in this draft, I replaced all the subdividers with applicants. So we can change that back. Because this I think it should be consistent though.
Yeah, I agree.
And whichever one we choose is fine. Alicia, you got a hand up?
Yeah. Are we not talking about subdividers? Is that not the basis of this section?
Yes.
So why are we not calling a subdivider? My understanding was as has been suggested, that the applicant, insertion of applicant, and then further how it was defined was to deal with something that came up at a particular DRB meeting. But if we're going back to what's the principle and the objective of this article. It is about subdivisions and subdividers, and that's the acting party.
Yeah, that's fine, except this definition was sort of circular
Yeah,
and
okay.
needs to be, it doesn't matter which one we choose, we can stick with the subdivider. It just needs to have a better definition than the
That,
one we're stuck with at the moment.
yeah, that's fine. I just
Yeah.
think that no reason to struggle with applicant if we're really talking about
Right,
the subdivider.
right, right. So moving on, we have a subdivision plan, and part of the idea of this, the overarching view of this proposal revision is to simplify, is to is to you have more consistent with other towns and legal documents the division, the meaning of a subdivision plan, a subdivision plat, which is a legal document that gets filed with the town, and a sketch plan, which is the preliminary concept of the subdivision. And Plainfield has in our current document, has a sketch plan review, a subdivision plan review, and then a plat review. And the idea is to make this more uniform with neighboring towns, which just have one large review of the subdivision with one appeal process, and then the filing of the plat, the finished legal document. And one of the inconsistencies in existing zone subdivision regulations in town is that it says that the plan must comply, the plat must comply with the plan and the sketch, which doesn't allow for enough minor reviews through the process. So in this version, which is just a suggestion, that the subdivision plan becomes the major finished document and then becomes the official plat. So this is this definition is subdivision plan, a scale drawing that depicts the proposed subdivision in accordance with the requirements set forth in Article 5, which we'll get to eventually. And so those are the couple of definitions that are proposed to change. So we'll go on to in this subdivision amendment process, we're going to skip down to Article 5, which is the section on street trees was moved to later on in the subdivision because it was in the full document twice. And also access management, we're going down some of the items in section Article 3 were removed and were moved into Article 5, and that's access management, which is now in Article 5. And we're gonna take a brief stop at steep slopes, which is section 3.19. And I think we talked about this last meeting to try to mirror what is in Marshfield zoning, and I'll just read this as roads, infrastructure, and buildings that are proposed on slopes exceeding 15%, 15 vertical feet and 100 horizontal feet, and up to 25% shall require a license. Oh, I got to take out that and. It is require a licensed engineer's design for stormwater control, earth retention, building stability, and erosion control. Did that summarize what we got to at the last meeting?
I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the increase. Previous steep slope was limited any development to infrastructure goals or buildings above 10%, which we thought was a little too restrictive. So moving on down, okay, we're in Article 5. And you'll see in this draft, the subdivider is replaced by applicant, and that can be changed back once we find that sweet spot in the definition for an applicant or a subdivider. We still have the exempt subdivision. One of the things that I've been thinking about is we had a definition for a minor and a major subdivision. Minor subdivision was up to 3 lots. A major subdivision is 4 lots or more. There was a slightly abbreviated process for a 3-lot subdivision. But we do have exempt subdivisions. Article 5, Section 5.1, landowner may divide 1 lot from a parcel. On the date of these regulations exempt from subdivision review. So we basically you get a free pass on carving out 1 lot. So that's the 1 lot exempt. And then if you did 2 lots, and if let's say I own 20 acres and I want to keep 10 and subdivide 2 5s, that sounds like a 2-lot subdivision, but it's really a 3-lot subdivision because my 10-acre lot is now a 2-acre lot. So we have 3-acre lots. And if I do 4-acre lots, I'm a major subdivision. So the only reason to have a minor subdivision is for that 1 2-acre lot. That's the only time it would take place. So in the theory of simplifying the process, if you keep the exempt subdivision, you call all other subdivisions, then it's a little easier, except for the guy who's got to go through all the details for a sketch plan for that 2-lot, 3-lot subdivision. I always thought it was a nice idea to keep the simple things simple, and if they got more complicated, make them complicated. But to have a whole nother avenue for that one instance seemed, once again, to be making it more complicated than it need to. We could make it a 2-lot subdivision where but I don't think we want to exempt those from the process. That's my thought.
There wasn't much difference between the requirements for a minor subdivision and a major subdivision anyway.
Right.
The reporting requirements were pretty much identical, right?
Yeah, but I think there was one step that you didn't have to do, but it was in my, if you got to do all the steps of the sketch plan, you got to have all those things anyway. Keep the 1-lot exemption, and then call everything a major a subdivision. What's your sense of that, Jesse?
I mean, I'm in favor of simplifying. I always think, what's the history of this? What are the 10, 20 different cases that had to go through these things? I think that we would benefit from making our process more straightforward. And I hope not to overwhelmingly inconvenience someone, but maybe in the end, going through this application process is something everyone should be ready to do if they want to subdivide. So I like the sound of the streamlining without feeling like I fully understand the implications of it, but I guess that's what we do here.
Well, yeah, it is what we do. And historically, we left that in there for the smaller, for the local guy who's just selling off 2 lots for his sons. They still got to do sons and daughters. They still got to do the most of the work anyway.
Yeah. And Will, correct me if this isn't right, but the next thing we're going to look at is the waivers.
Yes.
And so, the DRB does have the power in some maybe really simple subdivision plan that's 1 extra lot that's for I don't know what the situation would be, an extra family member lot or something. The DRB does have some power to waive some of the requirements. Is that-
Yeah,
Do I understand that right?
it does. It's really a little vague on what those requirements are. But we haven't changed anything in the waivers in this proposal. It has, so we kind of have to trust the DRB to, well, that's why we have a local DRB because they can't do that. So I'm going to move on. If there's not a problem with the waivers and it gives some flexibility, then I'm all for leaving it the way it is. Because the more you monkey around, the more trouble you get into. Go into the sketch plan reviews, and I think, David, this is where you had your trouble seeing where it went. It's being moved to another location,
Right.
and it's all the requirements are still there. They're just in 5.7. So this is a time maybe to move to the PDF where it reads a little more clearly, because the changes here, a lot of the changes here are changing of the final plat to subdivision plan is changed. The terminology is all the strikeouts still, the process is still there. They're just changed between the terminology between plan and plat, and because the previous one referred to plats, it should have been plans.
About, the strikeouts in the minor subdivision section, section 5.4, there's a thing there about within 6 months of classification, as a minor subdivision, the subdivider shall submit to the zoning administrator an application and fee for the final plat approval. It would seem to me that needs to be part of the sketch plan. I didn't see anywhere where the application and fee requirements were referred to in this revision. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. In 6 months, minor or major. Okay, I'm wrong, sorry. It's now under 5. Oh, I see, because 5, there's strikeouts, now there's a new 5.4 that used to be 5.6. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's what it gets confusing. And
Yeah.
5.4 wouldn't, since we don't have minor subdivisions anymore, that just gets folded into the regular subdivisions.
I had one other note that was something about that there's a referral to any state permits that might be necessary, and that is struck. And I'm not sure that was.
Oh, that's still there.
It is still there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't see it.
I'm pretty sure it is. Because I remember, but I've looked at so many different copies that I can't be totally sure.
I did see that. That's somewhere earlier today too. I don't remember. It had to do with that fact that after the final plan was submitted, there is a period of time in which the Development Review Board has to sort of confirm that the state permits are in line, but what's that?
It might be under 5.9 final plat. Oh, and it says for major and minor subdivision, so I didn't change that.
Well, we should check that it's still in there, because obviously,
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. So, that's pretty much the meat of it. We change. Oh, and we also have, just to confuse things a little bit more, or we're confused. We have revisions to subdivision plans, and we have minor amendment process and major amendment processes. And one is relatively simple, and one it goes back to the DRB. Depending, and the zoning administrator decides whether it's a minor amendments. And if they decide it's a major amendment, then it goes to the DRB for further review under 8.8. And was there, we talked about the warning. Remember, we talked about the warning. We wanted to warn the sketch plan review.
Right,
Yeah.
the sketch plan review is a hearing,
Yes.
not just a meeting.
Yeah.
That's
And
meeting.
yeah, I put that, that is now in, it may not be in the Word document, but it is in the PDF document, that the sketch plan review should be a warned hearing in terms of accordance with section 8.8 is what it says. Yeah, okay, under 5.3, I had written, the sketch plan shall include items listed in 5.7, so it's clear that the sketch plan review has those because they were previously right underneath the sketch plan. And under 5.3, meeting attendance, I added the meeting shall be warned in accordance with section 8.9, hearing and notice and requirements. So the meeting attendance of the sketch plan review is a warned hearing, the same way the plan is a warned hearing. So did I put that in the Word document? I might have done that afterwards.
So there's a bunch of stuff that's struck out in in the 5.8 number 1 subdivision plan application, and it's the stuff that was not in the sketch plan, some things that were not in the sketch plan review. So it's all information required for a sketch plan application plus. And some of those things, I'm not sure why they're struck out, or whether they recur again somewhere later, or
yeah, they recur again in 5.7.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then
yeah.
And the only I wasn't sure that I saw if private sewage disposal was proposed, permit approval from state wastewater division. But again, I may have missed it, so obviously that should be included.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that once again, I'm going to refer to the PDF. Yeah. Let's see now, is that connection, is that like F, G, and H?
That is
under what section are you looking at?
5.8.
Yep.
And it's under number 1.
Yep.
There's a bunch of strikeouts, and I says if private sewage disposal system is proposed, permit approval from state wastewater division. So that
Okay.
was struck.
Okay.
I guess what I think
Yeah.
we should, if there's a bunch of things that are struck and reorganized, we should, I've spent some time on this, but I haven't compared everything perfectly. It's pretty dense. So I think we should just be sure that there's not things struck out that then aren't replaced somewhere else.
Well, they're struck out, but they are in the new version. it's in section 5.7 sketch plan application. They have different numbers and it says, if private sewage disposal is proposed, permit approval from state wastewater division. So it's got a different, it's in a different location with a different letter, but it's still there. And I checked those, but we should definitely, we should each go over and check it again because I had to renumber the letters. So they're there, but they're in a different location. So let me just go down through then we're in PUDs. We didn't make any changes to PUDs. So the basic change, do away with minor subdivisions, refer the plan and plat differently. Sketch plan review is all one hearing that takes place early on. And then the most problematic issue is what is an applicant, who is an applicant and who is or a subdivider. And we can, doesn't matter to me whether we call it subdivider applicant. I think we want to clarify I'm going to stop sharing the page if we're good, probably making everybody dizzy anyway. That the applicant or we'll call it subdivider is the person who receives the permit. It's or the entity that receives the permit, because it could be a person or it could be it could be a corporation that owns a property, and they could, but it's I guess we need to be precise and address what are the concerns here.
Will, you mentioned asking the CVRPC about it?
Yeah.
I think we should do that.
Sure.
I think that they probably have a lot more expertise and also sort of an unbiased understanding of the legal implications of putting something like this in your zoning. I did find the section in Marshfield zoning regulations that does refer to an individual or an entity as an applicant. And so clearly other towns are allowing for someone other than the individual owner to do these applications. And I would love to just have a broader perspective of what the implications are.
Yeah, I think we need to definitely talk to some people who know more about it than we do,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like that, I hear entity as meaning something other than a person,
Right.
not other than the owner.
Right.
So that the entity is the owner. And the entity could be a corporation or a trust or a municipality or
right.
whatever.
Right.
And we should, and I think if we go that, if we should be as defined as we can. If we, like using the word entity, we should do the best we can to define that, what that means.
Yeah, well, I think they use the term representative in Marshfield.
Yeah.
So yes, they are definitely leaving room for an LLC. I think, there's plenty of instances where it could be a commercial property, where there could be businesses involved. And I think it would be helpful for someone who has a categorical understanding of all the scenarios that can come up around this, because we could find that there's real problems with trying to just define that on our own as well, and we should know that.
Yep, I agree. The Marshfield, you can stop me if this is not a good time to say this, but I thought it was interesting that Marshfield has their subdivision regulations separate. I found that to be helpful.
Didn't we just combine them?
Yeah, we did.
Well, there you go.
That's just that's sort of the current thinking of putting it into one document that you can easily get a handle on.
It's just like it was so much easier to look at. The other thing about the Marshfield ones that I found that I liked was that there was a little bit of narrative. Like it said, like the beginning of the process might be just a person going to talk to the DRB. Um, each section had a little narrative that I at least got someone reading that I found helpful. And I'm not trying to make a lot of extra work, but I did like that. I also saw, and I will read them more carefully. They have a clause in there that says, if the DRB needs to hire a lawyer to kind of help figure out where they stand, which I think I could be easy to foresee that happening. The subdivider, or however, whatever word they chose, pays for it.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, that's not a bad thing to have in there.
That's a good idea.
I thought
Yeah, might not be legal, but probably a good idea.
I was there, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. We could certainly add that. Like you say, it makes it a little, we don't want things so dense, it's hard to read. I'm just looking through Montpelier's zoning.
So the definition in Marshfield is, the definition of a subdivider is the,
Oh,
can we lose you?
Yeah, oh, no, I'm here.
Oh, okay, we just had a pop-up.
Okay.
We're gonna say no, thank you for your offer though. So the definition in the Marshfield zoning is, a subdivider is the owner or authorized agent of the owner of a subdivision.
Yeah,
that's what, I don't like it. But I think you're right, Jesse, in terms of,
We need to do diligence on
Yeah,
it so that we
absolutely.
don't create more problems down the road when someone shows up and they have a family trust, or they're trying to do a commercial development and there is an LLC, or, figure out what we're disallowing and what we're making work
Yeah.
better.
and be sure that it passes muster
Yeah.
legally, at least as much as we can.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's that's where we need to move.
And we also, this will affect Goddard as well. I mean, they are currently working through their application process using a representative. It's not the owner.
Yeah, it's that lawyer we had.
That's my understanding.
He was coming to the DRA. I'm sure the owner would come.
Yeah.
In that case,
Yeah,
he likes to communicate,
yeah.
or.
Okay, well, we made some good progress. I think we found the point of friction that we need to put some lubricant on and make sure it solves the problem and doesn't create more problems, as Jesse said. Any other comments from the people who are willing to join us tonight?
Nothing from Charlie.
Okay. Okay.
Will,
Yeah.
did you go to that hearing today for the?
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot. You got me all confused. Yeah, the NDA was approved.
It was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So now that helps Goddard. That helps any other project in the neighborhood development areas defined on the map, which is basically, if you can hook up to sewer, you can have some expedited state hearing processes, and hopefully we can get some grants in town to do some work. So all that is a good thing, and it turns out that the state has a larger program in place that's going to, once the advantages of a neighborhood development area are basically that the land is easy to create housing on. They're going to identify those on a state level and go ahead and grant those advantages to all those areas. So in some ways, it was a lot of work for. Yeah. But we do bump up another layer as having had the neighborhood development. But it's the same way the flood hazard that we worked hard to get is going to be instituted on a statewide level in a couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
we're just ahead of the curve, and it's a good thing, and there'll be benefits from the town on that.
Plainfield.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll see what I can find from the Regional Planning Commission. I'll look at some of the other towns, and if anybody else wants to do some research into the best definition and is there advantage to calling it an applicant or subdivider, it's kind of 50-50 in my book, but my book isn't that thick. Okay, I guess can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay,
Motion.
thank you, everybody.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
bye.
Thanks, everyone.